How's it going, guys? My name is Andrew and welcome back to Planet Coaster. This is Safariland, episode number 4, and today we're doing a lot of work on parking. So last episode we did that big parking garage that you see, but this episode we're actually going to, well, I don't want to say complete the parking area, but we're definitely going to do quite a bit of work on it. So we've done a little bit off camera here, and mainly it's that street that you see going all the way around where the parking area will be. So we have two streets here. We've got one giant street, which is going to be a street for normal people. So people are going to come in the park, they're going to go on that street. That's how they're going to get to their parking area. And then there's a smaller street that you'll see kind of on the outer side of that. And that's a street for staff. So I don't remember the name of the person who commented. I'm sorry about that. But someone commented and said that they've actually been to one of these parks before. And they've seen how it all works as far as from a staff standpoint. And that's one thing that I didn't know, how that kind of works. And so apparently the staff go in just like normal people. They go up to like they take the road towards the park, but then they take a side road which they use to get to their staff parking. And the staff parking can be anywhere around the park. It doesn't have to be where the normal people are parking, because you can imagine staff have to park near where their post is. So we're making a little staff road. That's what we have going around the area. What we're doing right now is we have a little, just a kind of little walkway, so that if you've gone and parked in the parking garage, you can just walk to the park. It's as easy as that. We have some more plans for people who didn't park in the parking garage, but instead parked a little bit farther, and you'll see that a little bit later in the video. We'll show you how that's going to work. But for now, we're making that kind of ramp where you put your hand, where you're railing, so you don't fall down the stairs. That's what we're making right now. And you'll see this will actually end up right next to where the park entrance is. So you'll pretty much get out of the parking garage. You'll be able to walk across this nice walkway. I might add like a moving walkway kind of thing like they have at Universal. But for now, it's just a walkway. And you'll be right in front of the park. So it's not a very far walk at all. No need for any sort of transportation, which is a little sneak peek of what we're going to do. There we go. We're working on the transportation now. So this right here is going to be a trolley that would bring people from the main parking to the park, because we can't expect them to walk that far, even though it's not that far. These are people. These are our guests. We want them to spend money, and if they start off being uncomfortable at first when they get in the park, that's not a good idea. So why will we have so much parking? That's a good question. Glad you asked. Well, we have a lot of parking in this park, and it's realistic, okay? So the size of the plot that you're given in Planet Coaster, it's about probably, I'd say, a fourth of the size of an actual park in real life. And so the parking that we're having is probably about a fourth of the size of an actual parking that you would see in real life. Now, if you go and look at some images online, some images of how they do parking, you'll see that the parking area is almost as big as the park itself. Assuming they don't do a parking garage. If they do just a standard parking lot, it's almost as big as the park itself. It's huge. It's gigantic. You wouldn't even believe it. Maybe you've seen it before from the ground, but unless you've seen it from the air, it's just completely insane. So when I saw that, I knew that we had to have alongside our parking garage some sort of actual parking lot. So here's some numbers for you to crunch here. The parking garage itself, and I don't have the exact numbers, but estimates. The parking garage can hold about 140 people, is an estimate that I came up with based off the number of parking spots that there are. 140. The parking lot itself can hold. Actually, you know what? I didn't come up with an exact number from that. But at the end of this video, you'll be able to tally up how many parking spots we come up with, and then you'll be able to figure that out. But I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna estimate right now, since I'm watching the video with you and I don't actually have the parking area in front of me. I'm gonna say the parking lot will be able to hold 500 people to 1,000 people. It'll be able to hold quite a few cars. So you have that to look forward to, because that's what we're working on mainly today. That and the toll booth, which we haven't yet gotten to, but I think we're about to get to that. So right here, we're just paving in the area, and you can see that was the area right there for the parking spaces. That's where they're gonna go. So we're gonna get to work on the toll booth here, and you'll see there's a common theme in all of my videos. I like to use placeholders like cars to figure out where things are supposed to go. So you'll see we have all those cars lined up. That's just a good way for me to figure out how I want the cars to be positioned. And you see me trying right there, trying to get those spaces filled in. But the pathing system, it's not easy to work with sometimes, and you have to just kind of deal with it. Don't worry about the tank. That was nothing. You didn't see that. But yeah, you know what they say: if you can't get rid of it, hide it. So we're trying to hide it in a couple ways. We're gonna try and put a car over it. I think those little spots. We're gonna have a car driving over it or something. I think that's probably the best idea. But for now, it'll stay. We'll fix that a little bit later. So the kind of toll booth. This is the toll booth, by the way. I think I may have mentioned that. The kind of toll booth that we're going for is one where the person stands in the toll booth, obviously, and they can deal with 2 cars at a time. So they've got 1 car on their left and 1 car on their right. And the reason we would do it that way is so that we can minimize the number of people we have to hire, assuming this is a real park, or we could also minimize the number of toll booths we have to build. So here, we're only going to have to build 3, I think it's 3 toll booths, rather than having 6, which would be 1 for each car lane. So I'm having to go at building the toll booth itself. First I wanted to build it out of this wood material, but I realized that didn't, you'll see, it doesn't really look as good as I wanted it to. And the image I'm using for this is the Busch Gardens toll booth. It's got like this, it's got like this plasticky green toll booth in like a big toll stand. So you'll see, we'll build that up a little bit later. But yeah, I don't think it looks right. It just looks like, honestly, I think it looks like an outhouse, like a place where someone's going to go to the bathroom. And I don't think that's what your first image should be once you get into the park. So in a second, we're going to go about trying to reconstruct that using other pieces. But for now, that's what it looks like. You know, honestly, it looks a little bit like an outhouse, but it also looks a little bit like if you go to a national park, they usually have this kind of wooden style booth here. So it could have worked, I guess, but I don't know. I think the plastic looks much better. It looks smoother, and it's a nice feel for getting into the park, I guess. I don't know. I just think it looks a little bit nicer. So that road that's behind the camera now, and it's going to be to the left. If you're a car coming in, it's to the left. You see it to the left in front now. Oh my god, it's hard to figure out what directions are when the camera's flying all around. That road that you see right now, that's the out road. So cars will basically come around, they'll get in, and then that's how they're going to get out using that road. And then the smaller road, that's the one where the staff are going to take. Now the staff are going to actually go through the toll booth. I thought about making it so that they don't go through a toll booth, but there has to be some sort of validation for if you're a staff. So I think having them go through like their own separate toll booth right next to the normal toll booth will be the best, and you'll see that in a second. So there's our archer as our placeholder for a human being, so that we know how big a person will be. I love placeholders. They work. It really helps when you have an idea of how big someone should be. So we're just having a little go at the windows, and that little black line there, that's to show that the windows can open or close. So right now the windows are open, obviously, because the guy's going to be dealing with cars and that sort of thing. Now we're going to go work on our well, after we get this done, we're going to work on the main bit of the toll booth. This is only the booth. This is only where the person stands, but there's also like a nice building here, because you don't just want to go into like an empty looking toll booth that looks a little sketchy. What you want is a toll booth with like a big whole building on top of it, so it looks cool. And that's really badly described, but you'll see kind of what I'm talking about in a second. So once this is all done, by the way, you'll look up, you'll see like a sky view of it, and you'll see that the parking area for this whole place is really quite big. But no worries, because I did increase the park size to the maximum. One thing that a lot of people don't know is you can increase the park size in Planet Coaster. All that area that's out of bounds, you can actually build in. So I did do that. We have a lot of space. Hopefully it doesn't affect us in an adverse way. I have heard that there's a bit of a park count when it comes to building like this with lots of scenery everywhere. So you can go a little bit overboard, and eventually your game becomes laggy. But you know what? I think cheers to that, because eventually we'll get there. But I've never gotten there before, so it's all fine. But yeah, that thing on the left, that little road on the left, that's where the staff would enter, so that they have their own little toll booth area on that side where there's no actual booth. So that's where there'll be like a validation, and you'll be able, they'll say, scan your card, welcome Alyssa to the staff go to your post or something. I don't know. They would do their, they would have something there. So atop that, we have a little Safariland sign, a little bit of branding before you get in. That's just so, it's just something to put up there. Once again, taking after the Busch Gardens one that they have. They've got a big Busch Garden sign on top of it. So there we have a little Safariland sign. It doesn't have the tree on it though. So I took off the tree because I thought it would look a little weird standing so high. So I wanted it to be, to look good vertically. So that's why the tree is gone. On the front, I might redo this. What we're doing is we're having a little screen there, and what the screen would do is it would display an X or a check mark, or maybe an arrow, like a green arrow or a red X or something. And that's something that they use a lot in the airports, so they can say this one's open or this one's closed. And so it's one way to very easily determine which ones are open or closed. A little bit of a pass as far as lighting goes here. We went with warm lighting to light up the Safariland sign. Warm lighting is kind of yellowish light, and we went with a cold bluish lighting for the under the actual toll booth, because it's more official. You gotta, like, bluish light, it's brighter than the warm lighting. So there we go. Finally, here we go. You saw we worked a little bit on the trolley a little while ago, and what we did before is we used was the paths to make the whole trolley system. But the only problem with paths is that you can't really build over paths. So we're gonna have another go at that and make it look a little bit nicer. Paths are nice. I like using paths. You'll see I use paths for all the roads. I like using paths specifically because paths are very, very easy to round, even though sometimes they're hard to work with. They're very easy to make them have really nice rounded edges, and you can very quickly make a nice kind of street-like system with paths. But the only problem is you can't build rides directly over paths. I don't know if that's a setting or what. So we took away the paths, and we're going to be using these concrete, what are these? Concrete plates or concrete platforms to make our road. And so this is a cool little technique that I've seen a couple times before, is you just place the ride down, and so you turn off ride collisions, and you can just place down scenery over it. So if you place down your own custom looking road instead of using paths, you can achieve kind of the same effect. Now, you'll see that this first iteration of this curve doesn't look great, and so you'll see me redo it. But one thing I like to do is, so you think that typically you'd want to have the coaster in the middle of the platform, but keep in mind that this kind of trolley, when you see it in real life, this kind of trolley is human driven. It's not on a track or anything. So I like kind of giving it variation for how close to the edges it gets. So you'll see here, sometimes the trolley will be on the left side of the path, sometimes it'll be on the right side of the path, and more so in some other places. So like right now that seems about the center, but in a couple of other places you'll see the trolley is going to be on the left or the right side, and so it makes it look a lot more human driven rather than like robotic track movements. So specifically right about there on the left side of the track, you'll see that we do the track so that it looks like it's getting really close to the edge, and it achieves that kind of human driver effect, what I like to call it. So that when it goes around in the circle, you don't think it's on a track. Putting a little bit of grass in the middle. I like the juxtaposition between the grass over there and the asphalt on the side. I think it makes it look very, very nice. And if we add a couple of rocks and trees there, it'll look pretty good. So this right here is just a little turnaround place. Say you have a trolley and it's like breaks down or something, and then one needs to take over his place. It's like, oh, gotta turn around. That's where you would turn around. So without having to go over the whole path. So that's that. There we go. It's actually starting to come along. Our parking area is finally starting to look like a parking area. We haven't done any line work yet, and I'd say the second half of this episode is going to be pretty much all line work, because line work takes a long time. But for now, we're doing some scenery work. So first thing first, we're going to rise the ground a little bit. Remember, this is supposed to be kind of asphalt, so it's supposed to be very close to the ground. So I don't like the platformed look that it has there. So we're just going to raise the ground, not rise it. I'm just going to raise the ground a little bit so that it looks like it's flush to the ground. Right here, we're going to work on a little bit of a pond, a little fountain kind of thing. And this has two two good effects here. So first of all, if you're in the trolley, as soon as you're coming to the station, you'll see this nice little fountain, and it's going to look pretty nice. But also, if you're standing on the catwalk that you see kind of to the top left of the screen, so if you're walking from the garage to the park, you'll also be able to see this fountain, and it's going to be kind of one of the first things that you see of the park. So we want it to be kind of a grand, cool looking fountain. And so I decided to make it pretty much rocks all around. There's rocks all around it. There's rocks at the bottom of it. I just think it gives it a really cool look from the top. So we have that little rocky thing. We're gonna have little sprayers. What are they called? Little water jets, so that you have this actual fountain kind of look here. And I think that's pretty nice. This is typically what parks will do. If you go to Universal, Animal Kingdom, any of these Disney kind of stuff, the first thing that you see in the park is going to be kind of some grand gesture of, this is what you're getting into, this is how much money we have to spend, pretty much. So they all like to blow their budget on the first things that you see, just so that you're like, oh my god, I'm actually in a wonderland of awesomeness, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what we did there. We just have a nice little rocky fountain there. We get a little grate so it doesn't look like everything's floating. Yeah, and then some pipes. We gotta have realism. That's one of the things that I want to stick to in this series, is realism. So pipes, we'd have backstage areas, we'd have lots of stuff. And I might even go in and add some backstage areas to the parking stuff. So like parking, you'd have security guards and that sort of thing. Kind of a backstage stuff. But we're doing some work on the vegetation. And even though this is supposed to be a safari park, we are gonna have some vegetation. Not too much, but a little bit. And what I'm thinking here is, you see how all those bushes are a little bit dead on that other tree. Well, my ideology for that is that that tree's kind of far from the water. So I'm thinking that the vegetation closer to the water would be the vegetation that would be greener, because it would get like water mist all the time or something. And assuming this is actually a safari park, we'll have like kind of a dry climate. So here we go with some more work, and I've sped this up quite a bit. Most of this video is actually sped up to 10 times the standard speed, but this is sped up to 15 times because it's a lot of tedious work here. So this is kind of experimental. Excuse me if it's too choppy, or if it's too fast, then tell me down in the comments. But yeah, we're working on the curb here, and I think the curb is really what brings it alive. And typically, if you look at these trolleys, they won't really have a curb, because the people who drive them are trained. They know how to get around the corners, and a curb would only mess them up. Maybe they don't need it. Typically, it's just grass. So and then there's no curb. But here, I wanted to have a curb just because we couldn't get these cool rounded edges. So I felt that a curb kind of made it feel more rounded than jagged, where in some of the cases the rounded edges are actually jagged. So the curb just kind of gives it that nice feel to it, that realistic rounded feel, I guess. So I like the curb, definitely. I think it was a good investment of time, even though the curb itself took this whole episode. By the way, this whole episode of Safariland took 7 hours of recording. So that's why it took so long for this one to come out. There was a lot of work, and I didn't really feel like uploading the video until it was done. That's pretty much how Safariland works. Typically with the scenery builds, as I see other YouTubers do, what they do is they work on 1 or 2 buildings and that sort of thing, and then they upload the video, they talk over it, that sort of thing, kind of like I'm doing now. But with what we're doing, the parking area, it just didn't feel done enough for me to upload the video. So we worked on the Tollbooth already. I could have uploaded there, but I didn't think that was enough. And now we're working on the trolley. So, but still, I didn't think that was enough. So in the final part, we're going to do some actual work on the parking area, and then that's what we're going to call it quits. But all in all, lots of time spent this week and last week in terms of getting this stuff done. The line work required for the parking spots and the detailing work required for the like getting that curb done, it just took a long time. So I like that color right there. Look at that plant. That's lavender. Does lavender grow in the safari? I don't know. I'll have to do some research on that. I just think it looked nice in the area, so we'll keep it. But a little bit of work on the parking garage here, just a little bit. I really like these barrier things, and I thought I really wanted to find a place to use them, and I think this might have been the best place to use them, you would have kind of something like this, just so that cars know where to go. And typically you wouldn't have these things, but I just thought it would look nice. You usually see those when it comes to corners, so cars don't hit the like if there's a fork in the road, so cars don't like drive into the middle thing. You'd have those cool little barriers, but what we're gonna do here is we're going to do a yellow line. You've all heard the subway. Please stand behind the yellow line. Do not cross the yellow line. Well, we're making the yellow line, so we don't want people to cross the yellow line. Otherwise, they are going to run into the trolley or get run over by the trolley. So please do not step over the yellow line. Here's our first iteration of the parking area. Finally, we're working on the parking area. It took so long, didn't it? Well, it's going to take even longer because this iteration is not great, and we're going to go over this now. I thought a lot about how to do this, and this whole first iteration uses paths, and I thought it might be an interesting idea to use paths, but I just felt that the paths, the difference between the path color and the asphalt color, it just didn't look, it was too different. So I decided that instead of using paths, what we're going to do is we're just going to use lines, and the lines will make the roads. Kind of like how they do, this is how they do in the real parks as well. Like, the road's typically not a different color. It just looks like one big platform of one color, and then the lines are what tell you where to go. So that's what we're doing here, using lines to tell us where to go. And in some cases we use paths, just in some cases, like in the connections to the roads. But here we go, once again using cars as placeholders to figure out how far apart things should be. Very good technique that I really like. And here we go, making the parking spot. Now, I had a bit of a tough time figuring out how I wanted to do the parking spots, because there are two types of parking spots that you see in theme parks. One of the types is what we're doing here. This is a one-car parking spot where the car would just go in, they'd park normally, and when they want to leave, they would just leave like normal. The other technique that you sometimes see is a double car parking, which is actually what we're going to do in a little bit. And the double car parking is useful because so when you have a parking area as big as this, you have attendants that go around to each parking line, and they direct cars to where to go. And the reason the double parking is really good is because the attendants don't have to move very often. They can park one line of cars, and then they can go in and immediately park another line of cars. So double parking allows for faster parking. And I think it might be a little bit more compact. It might be not by much though. I don't know. I'd have to do a test trying to use double parking on one side and single parking on the other. But I do like the style of double parking. I think it's faster. I'm not 100% sure. Using those big yellow blocks, by the way, to space everything. That's one thing I wanted to do, is I wanted to make everything have appropriate spacing so that no lane is too big. Here we go, putting a couple cars in there just to see how it looks. We can have a blue car and a nice red and black car. I think those look pretty nice. That was for, honestly, that was for a screenshot. I was sending one of my buddies. I was like, hey man, look at this. It looks cool, right? And he's like, whoa, that's cool. But yeah. So here's the line work that I was talking about. I'm not going to show all this. As it's very, very repetitive, the line work, and it's very tedious on my part. This line work is almost all that I did today, and I spent 2 hours recording today. So line work is very tedious, definitely, and that's why I'm going to show you a little bit of this, and then we're going to cut away to some more stuff, so that I'm not just showing you only line work. But there we go, line work, line work, line work. A lot of what we do is copy paste. It just makes things easy. So, but it's not always perfect. Okay, here we go. More line work. This is different line work though, no worries. So this line work, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be just making the area where the cars drive before they get to the parking. So just it's mostly just a curve around that bend that we have to do. But once we get that done, it's going to look awesome. Look at that. Look at that curve. I think that's some of my best work right there in that curve. So once we're done with the parking, by the way, in this episode, we only are going to do the left side that you see right now of the parking. We're not going to do that right side. So half of the parking will be done by the end of this episode. And the reason for that is because I didn't want to spend another 5 hours trying to get you guys the parking before posting this video. So maybe I'll do the other side off camera, or maybe I'll do like a live stream or something. I don't know. I don't know what I'll do, but we'll get that other side done, as well as getting cars populated in the parking. You'll see towards the end of this video that populating the parking spots with cars takes a long time as well. So, but line work as well, we get pretty much half of all the line work we need to do done in this video, and it gives you a good idea of how the line work is going and how much we need to do in the future. So here we go. We want to get some more parking spots in there. We didn't just want a whole open space, so just kind of copying the parking spots across. I'm not using the yellow blocks anymore as the placeholders, so I just kind of eyeballed it there. Hopefully it looks decent, but yeah, more line work. I think I can just title this video line work, or lots of line work, or loads of line work. It's all line work pretty much the second half of this video, but luckily, honestly, parking is one of the only areas where I think line work would be the majority of what you do, because it's just so much. You have to just get so much parking done. So many parking spots have to be placed. You have to have so many lines for the areas where people can't park, that sort of thing. And the rest of the theme park, which we're getting to, we're almost there, guys. We're almost to the point where we can start making our first attractions and that sort of thing. But the rest of the park doesn't really require line work. Like, when do you see lines in a theme park? It's only really in the parking that you have to do all this tedious line work. And from here on out, it's a lot of other stuff, a lot of scenery work as far as trees are concerned, lots of buildings, that sort of thing. So cherish the line work while we have it. So I certainly won't. Line work, I'm not too fond of doing lines. I should have a counter in this video for how many times I say line work. I probably said it at least 10 to 15 times by now. But here we go. That is it for line work. We just finished the line work of one side of the parking garage. Now we're going to start adding cars. And this is kind of interesting how we add cars here. The game gives you two types of cars. Well, it really gives you four. It gives you car, it gives you sportier version of car, it gives you police car, and it gives you taxi. So it also gives you bus, actually, but I don't consider that a car. But it doesn't give you any vans, it doesn't give you any SUVs. It's just those variations of car. So we pretty much have two cars to work with. The bright side is that we can color all the cars individually. So that's what gives us our variation that we want. But other than that, it's not much variation. It's just two cars that you can have in the parking lot. Whereas in reality, if you're going to a theme park like that, typically you'd go with a family or with your friends. So what you'd do is you'd bring an SUV or you'd bring a van. So you'd see a lot of vans and SUVs in the parking area. But for now, all we can really have are cars everywhere, which is fine. It ends up looking decent. But one thing I found myself really wanting to do when adding cars to this parking garage is I really wanted to have colorful cars. But then I looked back at screenshots of like sky view of parking areas, and cars really aren't that colorful. There are only a couple of colorful cars. The cars that you see, the ones that stick out, you see black cars, you see white cars, you see red cars, and you see gray cars. That's all you see from a sky view. Every once in a while you'll see a blue car. But I found myself, when making these, really having the urge to add blue cars everywhere. I felt that they looked really nice. So that's why when you look at that, it looks very blue, and you see blue cars everywhere. When in reality, a lot of them would be black and white and red. A surprising amount of people have red cars. It's kind of crazy. My car is red, actually, in real life. But there we go, doing some of that, some work on the cones. This is what you would see in real life. You'd see cones here, and the cones are there to direct you to where you need to go. The cones help you get to your parking. So here's some slow motion shots. There's our toll booth, and you'll see on the left we've got our nice parking garage with its walkway on the far left. You'll see we got some cones pushing you into the parking garage, and then on the right, kind of in the center bottom of the screen, you'll see we have the nice parking lot. Look how many cars we could fit there. I think over time we're going to add cars and change how it looks, but here's a cool other aerial shot of how the cars look. If you like that video, hit the like button, put your comments and your suggestions down below, and I'll see you guys in episode number 5.